Ned Hanigan keeps getting picked for the Wallabies. Got dropped by Michael Cheika for the World Cup. He always seemed like a guy who was kind of Michael Cheika's favourite from his time at the Tars, but I don't know. Dave Rennie's picked him as kind of a lock, loose forward, seemingly. He played exclusively lock during Super Rugby AU, but there was another guy who played mostly lock, but also a bit of loose forward, who played for the Western Force. And the Western Force didn't get any guys in the Wallabies squad, which I found a bit frustrating. I know the Force lost all their games, but they certainly had a few standout performers. So I figure let's take a few minutes and look at two guys. One's Ned Hanigan. He is a much maligned guy. He gets a lot of grief, maybe more than he should do. He's probably better than maybe we all give him credit for. I think he's hardened up a bit over his few years. But yeah, should he still be in the Wallabies? That's a question. Let's have a wee look. And the guy we're going to compare him to is Fergus Lee-Warner, who is a guy who I thought was a pretty standout figure for the Force in that Super Rugby AU season. I hadn't seen him play before, so it was kind of a refreshing one for me to see him. The Force had a few standout players, but for mine, he was their number one guy. But let's have a look at these two guys. Firstly, there's not much between them in terms of their size and their age. Lee-Warner's 26, Ned Hanigan's 25. Ned Hanigan is, according to the TARS website, I think 110 kilos. Lee-Warner's 112, so there's not much between them in size. Lee-Warner 194 centimeters, Ned Hanigan 194 centimeters, so the same height. There's a fair difference in experience, though. Lee-Warner's got 21 caps for the Force, and Ned Hanigan has got 50-odd caps for the Tars and about 20-odd caps for the Wallabies. So a huge difference in experience. How did they go in the Super Rugby AU campaign is a question. I will say, though, before I get to their numbers, that Ned Hanigan played a lot less minutes. He played 489 minutes over Super Rugby AU, whereas Lee-Warner played 598. They played the same number of games, but a different number of minutes. So Hanigan averaged 61 minutes a game. Lee-Warner averaged 75. So you can look at this and say, well, you need to bump up Hanigan's numbers to match. Or you can look at this and say, maybe Lee-Warner's got a bigger engine and generally can go more minutes. One of the games, I should say, Hanigan started on the bench. But like I said, Hanigan played all his games at lock, whereas Lee-Warner played 3 at flanker and the rest at lock in an 8-game season for both teams. But yeah, let's get to the numbers. Tries. Lee-Warner is your man. He got 2 during Super Rugby AU. Hanigan didn't get a single one, but Hanigan did have a single try assist, whereas Lee-Warner didn't have any. Based on point score, I'm going to give that to Mr. Lee-Warner. He seems like a pretty dynamic ball carrier to me, but let's have a look at the other numbers. Passes, this is actually one where Hanigan takes it out. He averaged 4.5 passes a game, where our man Lee-Warner, despite playing more minutes, only averaged 3 passes a game. If I look at his other numbers, it seems to be that he is more likely to take the ball to the line. Hanigan has 6 runs a game, whereas Lee-Warner has 8.3. So that could just be a play style. That could be a coaching thing. Maybe Lee-Warner's role is to run. Maybe that's from his 3 games at flanker rather than playing exclusively at lock. You can make of that what you will. Hanigan's more likely to pass. Lee-Warner is more likely to run, but their numbers are not drastically different. Run meters, though, that's one that kind of is drastically different. Over the course of the tournament, Hanigan got 68 run meters, whereas Lee-Warner had 169. So Lee-Warner's averaging more than 20 run meters a game. Hanigan's at 8.5. Now, despite the fact that Hanigan's exclusively playing lock, he is kind of a lock loose forward player, so you would expect him to put up maybe slightly better numbers than that. And also, not surprisingly, Lee-Warner had 9 clean breaks. Remember I talked about dynamic ball carrier? 9 clean breaks in Super Rugby AU, whereas Hanigan had just the 1. Defenders beaten, though, interestingly, Hanigan takes that one out. He had 7 over the course of the comp. Lee-Warner just had 4. So he must have just an eye for a gap because he's got more clean breaks than he does defenders beaten. Like, Hanigan's numbers make sense. 7 defenders beaten, 1 clean break for a lock or loose forward. That's probably normal. You're bumping people off more than getting into space, whereas Lee-Warner's 9-4 in favour of clean breaks. Make of that what you will. Offloads are pretty similar. Hanigan had 4. Lee-Warner had 5. Turnovers conceded, pretty similar. This is when you're coughing up the ball. Either you're getting pilfered or you're getting like a knock-on, so it's a negative stat. Hanigan had 4. Lee-Warner had 5. So again, kind of if you look at the fact that Lee-Warner played more minutes, it's probably about even. Likewise, the offloads. So yeah. Tackles is another one with a huge difference. And one of the things that I really like about Lee-Warner in terms of his work rate, 108 tackles over the course of the season. Hanigan had 58. So Lee-Warner's averaging 13.5. Hanigan's averaging 7.25. Even if you bump up Hanigan's minutes by like 10% to match whatever Lee-Warner's numbers are, like he's almost half of what Lee-Warner does. So Lee-Warner, man, in terms of his just massive work rate, he is your guy. That being said, Hanigan does have a higher tackle success rate, 95%, to Lee-Warner's 93%, so still pretty close. But if you look at it in terms of the whole game, that means Lee-Warner averages 1 missed tackle a game, whereas Hanigan's not even half a missed tackle a game. But he's making fewer tackles, if you get what I mean. Penalties conceded. Hanigan's getting himself into all kinds of trouble. He had 11 penalties conceded across the whole comp. Lee-Warner just the 3. So Hanigan's going to get at least penalised once per game, sometimes twice, whereas Lee-Warner not even every other game will he concede a penalty. So disciplinary record seems to be on the side of Fergus. Yellow cards, they both had 1 each during the course of the comp. But it's when I look at these last stats that I think things maybe I'm putting myself into Dave Rennie's mind. Because for mine thus far, I mean, you guys tell me what you reckon. He makes more tackles. He gets more run meters. He gets more tries. The offloads is about the same, but there's a lot of numbers to like about Fergus Lee-Warner here, right? He's got better discipline. He plays more minutes. Is that just me? However, you look at turnovers won, and this is ones on the ground rather than in the air. It's 4-1 in favour of Ned Hanigan. The whole course of the season, Fergus Lee-Warner only managed 1 turnover. Maybe that's not his role, but still, he only managed 1 turnover throughout 8 games, whereas Ned Hanigan's getting 1 every other game, and that's including 1 game from the bench. So that's a really good effort from him. Lineouts won. If you're looking at your own ball, Lee-Warner still takes it out, 29-20. So he's averaging 3.6 lineout takes a game, whereas Hanigan's at 2.5. If you bump Hanigan's numbers up because he's played fewer minutes, maybe he's at 3. But it's this next one, which may be the Lee-Warner killer for Ned Hanigan, and it is that ability in the air. And again, it's hard to judge lineouts because it depends on what your role is in the lineout. From memory, the Force often used thrush to try and pinch the opposition ball at lineout time. But Ned Hanigan had 7 lineout steals, which is immense, man. That's 1 almost every game. So even though he's giving a penalty away, he's stealing the ball at lineout almost every game. Whereas Fergus Lee-Warner didn't get a single one. But as I mentioned, it's a rugby game, it's a team sport. You can't look at numbers in rugby the same way you can in baseball because it's not one-on-one contest, it's a team thing. It depends on your role. Those numbers also work for Hanigan. You can say maybe his role is not to carry the ball. Maybe his role is not to be the first up tackler. Maybe based on the number of turnovers he's getting, he's supposed to be the man over the ball rather than the man making the tackle. Whereas Lee-Warner, maybe he's the man making the tackle rather than the man getting over the ball. You can look at those numbers how you will. But that's the one number that Hanigan really mops the floor with Lee-Warner is those line-out steals and I guess turnovers as well. 4-1 and 7-0. But for mine, I still reckon that Fergus Lee-Warner deserved a crack. I feel bad for the Force, man, that they finally get back into the swing of things with Aussie rugby. They've got a few stand-up performers and not one of them can make the Wallabies. I'm kind of against picking a player just to be like a token representative of a team. But honestly, man, I feel like Fergus Lee-Warner was worth a crack. But yeah, that's just my 2 cents. I'm not Dave Rennie. He's a far smarter man than me. But you guys let me know what you reckon. Check out the numbers. Have a look through the video again if you want to compare them again. They are sourced from ESPN for the most part, but also some of those stats come from Rugby Pass's site as well. But yeah, it was a bit of a fun look. Fergus Lee-Warner or Ned Hanigan? What do you guys reckon? Any other comparison videos you think you might like to see? People have suggested like Liam Wright, Michael Hooper for the Aussie teams. I've done Sam Kane against some of the other guys who play 7. Yeah, I do quite like those videos because I think it's just an interesting look at the way the teams play the game and the way the individuals are used. But anyway, you guys let me know your thoughts, and I'll talk to you again soon. See you later.